can make it there. I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York.
How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. A happy Saturday to all. Not a very happy Saturday for my beloved New York Knicks, as yet again, in my genuine opinion, after watching the game, I feel that Rick Carlisle, from the coaching standpoint, got the best of Tom Thibodeau. The Knicks' struggles at Madison Square Garden in these playoffs continue to rear their ugly head, as now the Knicks are down 0-2 to the Pacers and run into not just a must-win game, but a duo of must-win games, as they're going to have to go to Indy and win both road games if they realistically are going to have a chance to put this into a best of three, with two of the final three being at MSG. Just a litany of failures that I'm going to hit on. The Los Angeles Dodgers and New York Mets reopen their historic rivalry, rematch of last year's National League Championship Series. And it was a rain-soaked affair at Citi Field, and the Dodgers outlasted the Mets in 13 long innings. New York Yankees getting embarrassed by the Colorado Rockies, who may very well be the worst baseball team ever. And Ronald Acuna Jr. back with a bang. And I'm going to hit on the pros and cons of the Pittsburgh Pirates, even considering trading the sensational Paul Skeens. But I'm going to start this up on the hardwood. Why did the Knicks drop yet another game to the Pacers? Well, I'm going to start with the coaching. When you are offensively deficient outside of point guard Jalen Brunson, I think it is suicide, absolute suicide, to take Karl Anthony Towns out of the game for as long as Coach Tom Thibodeau did for defensive purposes. You open up the door for the Pacers to play the hack-a-Mitch. And you didn't make that blockbuster deal to have Karl Anthony Towns sitting in the fourth quarter. Bottom line, he is your second best scorer. It's just unacceptable. The Knicks played well enough on the defensive side up until about the final 4 seconds of the shot clock, and a lot of breakdowns were occurring. The Knicks were down by 10, made a late attempt to shave it down. They got it down to 1. Big error on the part of Jalen Brunson, as an errant Indy pass was going to go out of bounds, but he committed a foul. And no answer whatsoever for Pascal Siakam, as he just went off, having one of the best games of his playoff career. And I think the disconcerting thing, the real thing that is just deflating if you're a Knicks fan, if you're a Knicks player, is that this all happened with Tyrese Halliburton having a poor night from the field and only scoring 14 points after his massive game 1. Knicks are in trouble. And I think if the Knicks get swept or get pounded out in 5, or however this plays out, I think the most obvious thing that has to be addressed this offseason is can the Knicks win with the limited rotational pieces? You know, when you play this many games into a very long grinding season and you just don't have bench depth, or you don't really care to use your bench depth, it's difficult to play with a team that is as offensively gifted as Indy, that is as well conditioned as Indy. And ultimately, it just turns into a situation where it makes it just really difficult to compete for 48 whole minutes. For two consecutive games, I've seen the New York Knicks get thoroughly exhausted by Indiana's attack. And Indiana runs deep and they truly play as a team. Um, and the frustrating thing, too, is that you're squandering yet another really good offensive output from your best player, Jalen Brunson. I'm not sure after the demoralizing choke job in game one that the Knicks were going to be able to emotionally recover. And quite frankly, it looked like the Knicks just exerted all their energy just to so much compete with Indy yesterday. I personally think that Indy took their heart in game one. And sadly, I think it's just prolonging the inevitable. I want the Knicks to prove me wrong. If there's anything I could put my hat on and be a little positive about, it's that the Knicks have a stellar 5-1 record on the road in these playoffs. That is one of the few positives that I could point to as to why I think the Knicks could still make this a series. And the other part is both games have been incredibly close, despite all the things that I mentioned that the Knicks are not doing well. Another frustrating thing here, the Knicks out rebounded the Pacers for a second consecutive night and still walk away with a loss. But if I had to point to one specific thing, it's the coaching, undeniably the coaching, and it's the inability to get over on switches, fight through screens, and prohibit Indy from having their way from the field in terms of just great looks. I would have to say those two things are the biggest things that right now are prohibiting the Knicks from winning these games. Um, the true head scratcher is undeniably the record at home. When you think that the Knicks have a losing record after fighting all season to get home court advantage and be in a position like this, it's demoralizing. It's frustrating. You're not supposed to play this poorly at home or not finish at home. There's something about the Knicks this particular postseason on the road that has seemed to produce better results. But they're going to have to get to it immediately because going down 0-3 is a death nail. And to be frank, even going down 3-1 is extremely unlikely to come back from. Even in the Knicks' own history, they've only blown a 3-1 lead once in their history, and that, of course, was the P.J. Brown, Charlie Ward incident that ignited both benches into a brawl going back to the late 90s against the Miami Heat. It's actually the only series the Knicks lost to the Heat during the Alonzo Mourning, Patrick Ewing era when Pat Riley was coaching with Miami. But this is just utter disappointment. But truth be told, after seeing the way that the Knicks lost game one, this just didn't really move me in a disappointing way or in any other way for that matter. Because I think if Knicks fans, from a logical standpoint, can get past maybe some of their own fictitious bullshit, they could see that the Knicks probably are not even supposed to be in this round. You know, nobody picked the Knicks to beat the Celtics. And I'm not going to say we beat the Celtics because of Jason Tatum's Achilles tear. But to blow two consecutive leads the way that the Celtics did, they basically handed the Knicks two games halfway to the series victory. So you know, do I look at this season as a failure if the Knicks get kicked out in this round? No, not really. It's one round better than they did last year. But I think the obvious things that the Knicks need to do with this roster are just easy to view. The Knicks need more bench depth. Do the Knicks even consider trading for the Greek Freak to give Jalen Brunson more help? And if they were to do that, is there any way that they could maneuver that trade without having to move Karl Anthony Towns? It would be kind of wacky to trade for Towns to only have him for 1 year. But you're not getting a superstar like a Giannis for free. So these are all things that the Knicks are going to have to think about in the event that they don't get to the finals. But yeah, it's disappointing. When you have home court advantage and 2 nights in a row, Indy is able to quiet your crowd and just leave them in a state of shock, it speaks volumes on the job they're doing. And let's not forget, Indy did make the Conference Finals last year, but it was a wasted experience for them in part due to the fact that Tyrese Halliburton was hurt for most of that series. But like I said, when Halliburton has this average of a night and you still fall, very disappointing. Also, speaking of disappointing, New York Yankees, who have been playing very good baseball lately, drop one to the lowly Colorado Rockies. Aaron Judge continues to lead the pace of the American League as he hit his 16th home run. But all I could really say is that on any given day, anyone could beat anyone. This is not something that I'm going to look deep into because one thing that I have noticed, particularly in the Aaron Boone, Aaron Judge era, is whenever the Yankees lose to a team as bad as the Rockies or a team that they're just really supposed to beat, they usually respond ferociously the very next day. I remember this happened over the last couple of seasons against the Pirates, against other teams that are just not good. So I expect the Yankees to get back on track today. And as I already alluded to, they've been playing good baseball. You know, that series win over the Mets was huge. The sweep against the Rangers was also huge. And the Yankees are in a position that if they have a strong June, to really be in the driver's seat in the American League East and further in terms of just the overall landscape of the American League. As I said it on a previous show, I think the Detroit Tigers are the best team in the American League right now, and they've earned the right to be called that. But after them, I still feel that it should be the Yankees. And I don't see anybody in the American League East challenging the Yankees over the course of 162, or even if they run into divisional foes in the playoffs. I think anything could happen in spots 2 through 5 for the American League East. Another interesting caveat that I wanted to speak on with regard to this Yankees roster. With Marcus Stroman only pitching 9 innings this season, I believe that there might be more takers and more interest in facilitating a potential Stroman trade, as with the soon to be return of Luis Heel, the emergence of Ryan Yarbrough, the great season that Max Fried is having, and lately Carlos Rodon stepping up his game, and you still also have Clark Schmidt. I don't really see any kind of room for Stroman, but he did have an incentive in his contract that if he reached a particular amount of innings, he would be owed an additional 18 million this year. It would be nearly impossible for Stroman to reach that now that he's currently on the IL. But in order for the Yankees to facilitate any kind of trade, even if there is interest, Stroman will have to be healthy by early July, which I do think is possible. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on if the New York Yankees can part with Marcus Stroman, as quite frankly, it just really hasn't been a good acquisition. But stay tuned on that. What else going on in New York baseball? The National League runner-ups last year, the Mets, locked horns with the team that ended their season last year, the Los Angeles Dodgers. And this game was truly a war of attrition as both teams just completely depleted their bullpens in a wacky game, which saw both starting pitchers, Griffin Canning as well as Clayton Kershaw, get pulled after the second inning because of the mass weather delay. Ultimately, the Dodgers did outlast them, but you can't really feel that great if even in victory for the Dodgers because they are embarking on possibly their toughest stretch of the season, playing the best teams right now over the course of the next 20 or so games. And the Dodgers have been very hurt, very limited, even though they have a deep roster, just the injuries and the amount of games they've been playing. But definitely a win that you love to have. The Mets also depleted their bullpen, but the Mets are not nearly as injured and as beat up as the Dodgers are. So I'm going to say it right now here on the show. I expect the New York Mets to have a pretty good response today and pick up a victory, but they have been sliding as the Philadelphia Phillies have recently took over first place and are starting to distance themselves a little bit from the Mets. The Mets are coming off consecutive series losses and now lose at home to the Dodgers as they struggled against American League East rivals, the Red Sox, and previously the Yankees. But when I think about going into the year, how the expectations were so very low on the Mets rotation and how they have over exceeded those expectations, I think even with the current slump the Mets are in, they are in a pretty good place. Atlanta Braves, New York Mets, obviously big rivals, but it was something to see Ronald Acuna Jr. make his long awaited comeback and hit a huge home run in his first at bat in the bigs since his second career threatening, if I may say, but definitely season ending injury. Definitely a boost that the Atlanta Braves need, as they, of course, have Spencer Strider back this year as well. Braves started off so bad, 0-7. They're playing better right now. But do I consider it a three-team race in the East? I'm not sure if the Braves are going to be able, over the course of 162, to hang with the Mets and Phillies. But the fact that you're getting back Acuna Jr. is really great for the organization. It's great for baseball. He's one of the best players in this era. But the Braves still stumble, still lose. That's their third straight defeat. So until further notice, I think when you talk about teams that could be elite in the National League, it's a short list. It's the Dodgers, it's the Mets, it's the Phillies, and I believe the Giants and Padres are kind of on the fringe of being in that conversation. Pros and cons of why the Pittsburgh Pirates should trade or could trade Paul Skeens. I'll tell you why they should, and then I'll tell you why you can't. When you consider that his value will never ever be as high as it is right now because of just the output that he's doing. It's eerily similar to what the Mets dealt with Jacob DeGrom when he just got cheated out of so many wins because he wasn't getting any kind of run support. Although in DeGrom starts, the Mets did manage to be right around 500. This is worse. This is worse because Skeens, although his ERA is lurking under 2.5 a game and he averages 6.1 innings per appearance, there is nothing at all around him. Now, if the Pirates were to trade him, say now, before the deadline, they would get a king's ransom that would probably make the Juan Soto deal look minimal, where Juan Soto was traded for the Yankees for all those pieces. It's a tough decision to make because on the flip, what are you telling your fan base when you get the number one overall pick just a couple of seasons ago and get rid of him when you have control of him until the 2029 season? But I think the Pirates have to be realistic. You're never going to have a higher value for Paul Skeens than you are now, unless if you give him a deal that can be larger than what the Dodgers gave Yamamoto. I think you're prolonging the inevitable. Paul Skeens is going to end up with a big market team, whether it's the Dodgers, the Giants, the Yankees, the Red Sox. Skeens is going to go somewhere else. There is no real future or any kind of hope for winning if he stays in Pittsburgh. But get at me in the comments and let me know what you think, and let me know if you guys and girls actually think it even makes moderate sense to move on from Paul Skeens. I think I tried my best to give you guys reasons. I love the idea of trading Stroman for my Yankees. That I do really like. And the month of June is really going to separate the contenders from the pretenders in MLB. Another thing I want to hit on is just the utter disappointing season that the Baltimore Orioles are having. They went to the playoffs 2 consecutive years. A couple of seasons ago, they had the best record in the American League. No playoff success in those 2 seasons. And now, just to get back to 500 would require, I believe, a 17-game winning streak. If I'm not mistaken, they are currently 16 and 34, 16 and 33, one or the other. They are really, really bad. Of course, losing Corbin Burns to the Diamondbacks this offseason hurt. Anthony Santander, who was a staple there, now a member of the Toronto Blue Jays. And I think the most tenured Oriole is soon to be dealt in Cedric Mullins. It's difficult to figure out completely why this team has hit the wall the way they have. They recently fired their manager, but similar to what I said about the Pirates moving on from their best talent, I think this is an opportunity for the Orioles to trade off some contracts, make some deals with guys that could help potential contenders right now while continuing to get younger. The Orioles do have a decent pipeline in the minors, and the Orioles, at least on paper, look like a team that can turn the page for better days in the next couple of years. But I personally believe that part of what's hurting the Orioles right now is that they don't have any true leadership on the diamond when you consider the youth of the team. And when you lose some of the valuable veterans that you had, these things are bound to happen. I mean, baseball's weird. Sometimes you have an off season and you come back. But I think what's going on with the Baltimore Orioles is a little deeper than that. I personally think that there's a lot of internal issues going on where the organization is actually struggling figuring out which direction they truly want to go in. Um, as today goes, Western Conference Finals. I like the Oklahoma City Thunder to take a commanding 3-0 lead over the Minnesota Timberwolves. I would love to see the Timberwolves make a series of it, but I don't see it happening. I think OKC is really coasting. As my Knicks go, uh, it's going to be hard for me to pick them in game 3 or game 4. We'll just have to see. But truthfully, I think the Knicks are a couple of games away from starting their summer. Uh, oh, man, just disappointing. But today I like the Mets to win. Today I like the Yanks to win as well. And I like the Phillies on the road in Oakland. Might be a good day for the parlay. But until next time, I am Richie. If you haven't already, please make it a point to like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube, also on Facebook Live. Always dropping predictions on IG. Make it a point to check out the VMix on live365.com, as well as the Casual Convo Show 8 to 10 every Wednesday night. The Sports Corner with Mr. Nast, our good friend, host of The Basement Show with Mr. Nast, our guy Johnny Nast, doing big things over there, starting up his own Sports Corner, so definitely show some love and support to him, hard worker, and just a great person. But announcements to come for our next show. Have a great day, everyone, and enjoy your weekend. Be safe.